Thank you. In the first place, I'd like to thank all of the participants and thank all of the participants to this very important event for having invited me as Atlantia, representative of Atlantia. Atlantia is not present in any such geographical area. So before giving my contribution to today's meeting, it's important to introduce Atlantia, to remind everyone what kind of investor and economic operator we are. I believe that this is very important because many still identify us as the main highway and road operator at national level, and this is certainly definitely true. But in the course of time, we have become something more than that. We are an international infrastructural player. For many years, we've been launching an investment program, a relevant one, in order to allow for more diversification at geographical level. Atlantia now is one of the main airport operators. The Fiumicino airport is handling more than 45 million passengers. And we are also very much present abroad with the highways and roads in Italy, in Europe, and even elsewhere, in Brazil and Chile. For example, we manage and run some 5,000 kilometers of highways in the South American continent. For many years, we've been looking with great interest at all of those geographical areas that express and have some potential for growth that exceeds the one in Europe. And Russia and the many other neighboring areas do stand as a market which we are evaluating with great attention and constant interest. The characteristics, the geographic characteristics, the state of development of infrastructures in any such countries, and the lower degree of maturity in some internal markets to us, in our capacity of structural investors, stand as an incredible unexpressed potential, and they also allow for great growth opportunities. In all of the infrastructural sectors, this is so. And as we said, there is great potential with ports, and we've spent already many words with that respect, but let me just make mention of one element, the aggregate volume of the container traffic in Russia, and compare it with the one in Western Europe. And we will understand that this is only a fraction of what has been expressed by other nations of more reduced dimensions. But even in the highway sector and the road sector in general, let me just not repeat what was said by the previous reporter, who well expressed the vastity and the incredible number of opportunities that still exist in such a sector. But again, going back to the airport sector, we are looking at this sector with great interest, and it's enough to quote that the airport system in Moscow is represented by 2-3 airports that handle the movement of more than 35 million passengers, and they also are still growing airports. These airports did grow by some 10% on the average on a yearly basis in the past 10 years. They have been characterized by a regulatory system which is highly attractive. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because there is a great potential. We see opportunities. We have a strong foreign-oriented inclination, and we want to allow for more investment opportunities. So I believe that an operator like us can give a contribution in allowing for the understanding of some operational barriers which are still hampering our market operators in that Russian and Eurasian market. I wouldn't want now to touch upon the sanction theme, which was broadly touched upon, and also because some of the things that I am about to say will exist now and will still exist even later on. Now, going back to the infrastructural assets, which is a specific theme, we believe that the barriers, these two main barriers, de facto stand as a non-complete understanding of the governance mechanisms that may be implemented in the reference areas. But this is important because the average dimension of infrastructural investments is so relevant. Usually they account for $1 billion, $1.5 billion of euros. And these investments have to be carried out with a partner in order to have an effective management of any such investment, and the relationship with the partner is of paramount importance. Then there is a second important, which maybe is even more important, especially for people like us who invest and work with the goods that, because of structural characteristics, sometimes turns into de facto monopolies, so regulated assets. So this entails the visibility on concession regimes and on their own duration over time. I believe that we still have an informational symmetry, and this information symmetry is progressively being reduced. This is something that takes place on two different tiers. On the one side, that this is an integration process that occurs between patients and which occurs and happens by means of initiatives like this one that are crucial to sustain and support dialogue, the approximation procedures, and the harmonization of regulations. But then there is a second tier, which is more operational but less visible, which is the operational one, as I said. So we need a transfer of knowledge of those who have specific knowledge of these markets and the investors who still don't have it. And here I'm referring to the advisor role. I know that there are lots of advisors in this room, and I'd like to stimulate them to still keep a strong focus into this area, because in their own declinations, financial advisors, strategic advisors, industrial advisors, as a matter of fact, they devoted attention to this area in different moments, and the final user in the end perceives this sort of volatility, whilst the role of the expert of local rules, of local mechanisms, the role of this expert, especially vis-a-vis of the investor, is fundamental. And so the theory will then have to be supported by real life practices. And there is only an effective support of the expert operators in this sector, and as far as this local dynamic, that will allow us to exploit the unexpressed potential, which means that operators like us will find the conditions to successfully invest in those countries. And instead, for the local economies, this means that there are going to be initiatives that will support the local development. Thank you.